guys, welcome back to my channel. You're all doing so good to keep coming back. I'm really proud of you, and do you know what, I'm actually kind of proud of myself for keep doing all of these, because it's not easy to keep coming up with new things to tell you lot. Tell you this, it's really not. Anyway, I don't know if you've watched any of my videos before. I'm assuming that you have, considering like you're here and everything and that you found me in some kind of way. But if you haven't, my name is Willow. I am actually a pagan witch, a medium and a paranormal romance author. So I've kind of got a lot of things going on in the pot here. So this part of the channel is all about writing and writing tips, how to do it, different things to avoid, and things that, as a writer, you really should know. So I started this channel as a way of actually helping people as much as I can, both on a creative level in the writing world and with instructional videos and things like that, but also in spiritual matters. So I am going to be starting some spiritual type videos at some point in the very near future. You do not have to tune in for these, you do not have to pop back for these, I don't mind, I won't judge you, no judgment here. Anyway, I decided to make this series of videos on punctuation as a way of helping others who may not understand how to use these tricky little buggers, or they may find the explanations available online or in books or things like that just way too complicated to understand. Now, I'm not going to go into massive details or teach you enough to get an English degree. It's not going to happen. What I'm going to teach you is the punctuation that you are likely to need as a writer. Okay, everything here is to do with writing fiction books, short stories, or general creative writing. I'm aiming to keep this as simple and easy as possible, and all I'm really going to do is go through the basics with you and actually give you lots and lots of examples to show you how to use these symbols correctly. But I'm always willing to answer questions if you're unsure. So if you're not sure, just stick one in the comments and I'll try and answer it as best as possible. Okay? Proper punctuation is very important for writing. It will help the flow of your sentences and it will make sure that your meaning is perfectly clear. That's their job, to make sure that your writing is clear and concise and to make sure that your meaning is never misunderstood. So I'm starting off this new series of videos with the simplest of all punctuation symbols, the ones that we use to finish off a sentence. Now obviously I'm English, so what we say is that it's a full stop. We never call it a period. This makes perfect sense to me as it's the stopping point of a sentence once it's done. Although other people might call it a period, it's neither right nor wrong, it's here nor there. It's personally, it's up to you, it's totally up to you, it's just what you do as a person, how you're brought up, or just how your dialect and language is, where you're from. But for me, for the purpose of these videos, I will be saying full stop rather than period. Okay? This little guy is placed at the end of a sentence to indicate that it's come to an end. When reading him out loud, there should be a very firm feeling to it. So every sentence must end with either a full stop, a question mark, or an exclamation mark. There really isn't any other option in this when it comes to writing fiction or writing in general. So for example, if you take this sentence, you should be able to hear that full stop when you say it out loud. When he died, it was the end of an era. Everyone would remember him. Very firm full stops there. A sentence must always have an ending to it, and the full stop is the most common one to use. If your sentence is not a question or it's not expressing a very heightened emotion, then use a full stop. You don't need to use anything else. There's no need to try and get over creative in this or to find complicated ways of finishing off a sentence. Nothing else works or is correct in regards to punctuation. You'll just end up looking silly, and believe me, punctuation and grammar are one of the first things that you will be judged on when someone is reading your writing. So it's very important to get it as right as you possibly can. Okay, we'll move on to the question mark. Now the clue is in the name and it's pretty self-explanatory. The question mark is used in place of a full stop when the sentence takes the form of a question. So this is for both narration and dialogue in fiction writing or writing in general. So here's an example of a question that's written wrong, using a full stop instead of the needed question mark. So as you can see in this example, how do you work this toaster? If you don't put the emphasis on the question mark, which you don't have from the full stop, it becomes a very sort of meh sentence. How do you work this toaster? That's how the sentence will read to somebody that is reading it with a full stop. It makes no sense. You can tell that it's probably supposed to be a question, but there's nothing to indicate it. Therefore, for a reader, it's rather confusing. That one simple change can make your meaning so clear. Now you get it as, how do you work this toaster? There, perfect. Now you can tell exactly what the sentence is. Obviously in this example I used a piece of dialogue. The principle is exactly the same for narration. She didn't know where she was going. Where was the bloody house? No emphasis on a question there. You can see, just like before, this sentence feels like a question. It feels like the narrator is talking for the character, which is what narrators do, but it isn't clear what's going on. That simple change can make all the difference. She didn't know where she was going. Where was the bloody house? This makes the narration much clearer. You can tell she's searching for a house, but can't find it. As anyone would do, she's asking an internal question, which is shown by the use of the question mark. When writing, we don't want to bog our readers down with endless dialogue and have to write internal monologues or thoughts constantly. Writing rules with regards to punctuation and grammar are exactly the same for all types of writing, unless clearly stated otherwise. Now, we're going to go on to our last symbol, the exclamation point. This one is seen as a little bit trickier than our first two, but really it's just a case of writers and people in general overcomplicating things and overusing the symbol. If you look anywhere online or on social media in general, anywhere like that, you will see people that overuse the question mark and the exclamation mark. They will sometimes use it 3 or 4 times in one go, like this. This is unneeded and completely wrong from a punctuation point of view. Although I do understand why some people do it, and I myself have been guilty of this. I'm not going to lie, I've done this thing as well. But what people need to remember is that social media posts are not real writing. They are not something that you're putting out into the world, and most likely at some point charging people to read as if you was writing a book. Please, 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 I cannot beg you enough, do not look at social media as a way of discovering how to write or how to punctuate your work. It is almost always wrong. When I said the exclamation mark is overused, I didn't just mean in the number of times that it appears at the end of a sentence, I meant in general, especially in writing done by a novice writer. It is the most commonly abused punctuation mark, apart from probably the comma, in almost every book that I read. An exclamation mark should be used sparingly and only when it will have maximum impact. I edited a story for a friend and the story was just under 30,000 words, and when I searched out how many times she'd used the exclamation mark, I found it over 400 times. That is literally crazy for a piece that in fiction terms is relatively short. She'd also used it incorrectly, using it when it made little literary sense. In short, the whole thing was a bit of a mess. An exclamation mark is used to pack a punch into your narration or dialogue. That's why they're best used sparingly. Think of a friend that's constantly excited or constantly dramatic. You know, it gets old very fast and you begin to actually dread talking to that person. You can admit it. I know, we've all been there, we've all got that friend. And much as you love them, you sit there and you think, oh, I can't be dealing with this today. I can't be dealing with her dramatics. Say, there she goes again, there he goes again. You know, do you actually want that for your writing? That's the question you ask yourself. Do you want that kind of over dramatic writing that people can get to the point of going, I can't read this, I can't deal with this? There's a difference between it being in your narration being like that and your characters being like that. You could, if you wanted to do it where you was writing a character that was like this particular friend that's character's always overexcited and always over dramatic, then that would be the kind of thing that you could use and use for a reason. But when it comes to your narration and things like that, you really do not need constant drama and constant in your face exclamation marks and punctuation. It's not needed. To be honest, an exclamation mark that's overused is a cheap way of putting that emotion and that feeling and that punctuation into your writing. Your writing, your description and your narration should do the job for you. You shouldn't need to cheap out and actually use an exclamation mark all over the shop. You don't need this. So your answer to that question of do you want that for your writing should be no. Just an FYI. So they're most often used in fiction to show emotions and things like that. So such as surprise. I can't believe you did that. Anger. I hate you. Joy. Oh wow, I love it. Excitement. I did it. Or, you know, to ask for help and to get attention or to issue a command or convey a sense of urgency. Stop. Please, someone help me. If you overuse this little guy, you will take away the impact that he has. So before you think about using him, I want you to ask yourself the following questions. Is it hugely important? Is it super exciting? Is it an actual emergency? If I said this out loud, would I shout it? If I was in this situation, would I be very angry, excited, scared, or happy? All of these will actually help you to learn to use your exclamation marks as sparingly as possible and so that they have the right impact. They need maximum impact with this. If you use them all the time, they start to lose their punch. As with the question mark, an exclamation mark takes the place of a full stop. So now I'm going to go into this next point in a little bit more detail in another video, but I'll just touch on it now. With any punctuation like this, it must always be within your speech or quotation marks. Okay? The punctuation must never be outside of your speech marks when you're writing dialogue or anything like that. There also must never be a gap or a blank space between the last letter of the sentence and the punctuation, be it a full stop, a question mark or an exclamation mark. Okay, so that's all for today. Keep popping back to watch the rest of this series. Thank you for watching, and as always, blessed be and happy writing.